Good morning, fellow stackers, stack vesters, stack preppers, stack electors, and stackticians. That was I'd Rather Be With You by Bootsy Collins, and I'm happy to be with you all right now. So, this is Expat Stacker coming to you all the way from South Korea. Before you power down this weekend or get turned up, let's get you filled in with some of this past week's events in my second weekly Restack show. If you're returning to this show, then welcome back, and I thank you. And if this is your first time joining, then welcome. In this show, I summarize and review the news of the past week in the following format. First, we do a quick 5-minute market recap of what went on in the financial markets. And then we move on to another segment, 5 to 10 minutes of finance / bullion related news, or news that could be related to what we do as stackers, collectors, people who acquire physical gold and silver bullion. Mainly I focus on news related to gold, silver, and platinum, and sometimes other metals like copper, etc. After that, we move on to a few minutes of world news and current events, and then we finish off the show with a quick update of what's going on around the stacking community, news and notes to update you about what's going on with our fellow stackers. I can't cover all the news, but I had a lot of great feedback from the first show, and my objective is just to help keep anyone who wants to listen as informed as possible. So, these days there's a lot of mixing of news and opinion. I'm just trying to deliver factual information to you. That's about it. I'm not perfect. Sometimes I have to throw a jab in there at the banks, or if I think something is funny, I'll let that be known. But for the most part, I try to just deliver the facts and help you guys to stay up to date on what's going on. So please feel free to leave your thoughts, comments, feedback, questions, and suggestions in the comment sections about anything related to the show. You could give me some suggestions for intro music each week, or regions of the world that you want me to cover, or different types of news stories, and we'll see. I'll do my best. I'm not promising that I'm going to do every suggestion, but would love to hear feedback from you guys on that. So without further ado, let's get into this past week's news. So in the metals markets, gold closed the week at $1,854.80 per troy ounce. So it gained about $30 this week, and it's still down about $100 per ounce off its high so far for this year, when it was around the 1960 level. Silver closed the week at $25.46 an ounce, also gaining about 70 cents this week, but it too is still off of its 2021 high, just shy of $28 an ounce. And stay tuned for the next part, because we have some very big and interesting news related to silver in the show today, just like we did last week. Platinum followed suit, slightly up about $30 this week, finishing off the week at $1,101.50. It is just $30 off of its 2021 high of nearly $11.30 per ounce, and it, of the three metals, I would say recently has had the most sustained momentum as of late, so we'll see where that goes. Oil dropped again this week, down over 2%, and it is really struggling to start the year. Bitcoin has had a roller coaster week, and currently it's about $33,275, which is still higher than it started the year, but it's way off of its $42,000 high for the year, and it seems like it's trending down a little bit. But Bitcoin is extremely volatile, so perhaps not. The Dow, S&P 500, and Nasdaq all gained this week and reached new all-time highs after President Biden was sworn into office. The Dow finished the week up 0.5%. The S&P 500 up just shy of 2%, while the Nasdaq jumped over 4.2%. 2%. Stay tuned because we also have some news that's noteworthy on stocks as well. I know a lot of us stackers also invest in stocks, especially in the US stock market. So there's some news that you're going to want to hear, trust me. All right, Asia Pacific markets continue to be strong, while European markets are finishing this week slightly lower. The Kospi, where I'm at in South Korea, continued its incredibly strong start to the year, gaining 3.75% this week. The US dollar gained this week against the euro, sterling, yen, and a number of other currencies as strict lockdowns in the Eurozone, Japan, and some parts of China have hit their economies hard. Dollar is about around the 90 handle right now. Investors seem to be drawing in a sigh of relief after the peaceful transition of power in DC went smoothly, but still seem somewhat cautious as there are still a great number of uncertainties and difficulties that are lying in wait, including the complexities around new strains of the global pandemic, the vaccine rollout, and geopolitical realignment with a new administration in Washington and several other issues. Okay, so let's now turn to precious metals and financial related news. All right, so I promised you there's some big news on silver. Let's get to that right away. On January 21st, 2021, over $500 million worth of new silver futures contracts appeared in the derivative markets, making it the largest intraday capital influx for paper silver in a single day in nearly a decade. Let's put that in perspective. These days we hear 500 million, 10 billion, even trillions of dollars, and it just kind of difficult to imagine. So let's break this down into terms that we understand as stackers. $500 million worth of silver is approximately 20 million troy ounces. So just picture 20 million American silver eagles if you can. That's 600 metric tons. Okay, let me explain something to you. The annual global supply of new silver that's mined each year is about 26,500 metric tons per year on average over the past 5 years or so, which means that the capital inflow into the silver derivatives market on January 21st was about 2.3% of an entire year's worth of global silver. And that might not sound like that much, 2.3%, but whenever you hear percentages, you have to ask, what's the raw number of, and this is 2.3% of total global annual supply of silver. And that is a lot when normally, a trading day sees like typically less than probably like 0.2%, of new contracts in a day. So really big news there. So whoever's placing those bets in the SLV is pretty bullish on silver. And since May of 2020, last year, the trading volume in silver ETF markets started to increase dramatically and continued to increase all the way up until like early December. But suddenly it fell quiet in mid-December, and there's been a lull. There's been this like quiet, reduced volume in the silver markets. And it has spilled over into this year until this week, January 21st. So unless January 21st was some type of isolated anomaly, there's likely to be more turbulence in the spot price of silver. So keep an eye on the trading volume, not necessarily the spot price, but the volume, okay? That is the number of relative transactions in the silver paper market next week and over the next few weeks. Because if it starts to increase, we're going to see greater price fluctuations, and we could very well see a breakout in the spot price, either to higher or lower. And with such a huge influx of new capital, I would guess it would be to the higher side. So if you're holding a lot of silver, that would be great. If that volume continues. So pay attention to that. It's going to be very important. All right, Yamana Gold has announced the successful completion of its acquisition of the Wasamac property and the Camflow property and mill from Monarch Gold Corp. The announcement says the addition of the Wasamac project to Yamana's portfolio further solidifies the company's long-term growth profile with a top-tier gold project in Quebec's Abitibi region, a prolific mining district where Yamana has deep operational and technical expertise and experience. The reason I bring this up is because I want to use it as an example as to what's going on, generally speaking, in the mining industry, which is that several mining companies are choosing to acquire new mines from other mining companies or to do M&A, merger and acquisition, with other mining companies rather than investing in exploration of new mines, because it costs a lot of money to discover new gold mines. And once you do, from that point on, it's a depreciating asset. There are, once you start mining a gold mine, that's it. It only goes down from there. The asset just starts to decrease. So rather than spending money on research and exploration, a lot of mining companies are choosing to buy properties, or just merge together with other mining companies, as they say here, to sustain their long-term growth profile. So I just wanted to give you that quick, microcosm, that quick example to show you that still seems to be the case in the mining industry. There have not been very many huge discoveries. There was one in Turkey a few weeks back, but other than that, I haven't seen anything. Okay. According to Bloomberg, Wall Street insiders, including board members and C-level officers and executives and others, have been net sellers of the American stock market. So I told you I have something to say about the stock market, and this is it. They have been net sellers of the stock market by a factor of more than 2 to 1 in recent weeks. And it's at an all-time high level that they're selling off their stocks. So you know the old saying, buy low, sell high. Well, they're selling now. So that should tell you all you need to know if you're an investor in the stock market. Okay, video game rental company GameStop's stock price went from all-time lows around $3 a share to over $60 per share in a matter of weeks amid a short squeeze of call option buying. The squeeze reportedly originated because of a subreddit, and I have left a link in the description of a hedge fund manager who has lost a lot of money because of this. And the video, I think, is hilarious because it's a remake of a long lecture that he gave in which he tries to, quote unquote, educate the Redditors and the individual traders who are making a lot of money off of him. So it's just, in my opinion, kind of funny to see. Usually it's people like him who win on the stock market, but it's kind of funny to see he's made a huge bet in GameStop and it is not working out for him. And retail investors have come together on Reddit to turn the tide. I think it's hilarious. And they basically remix the video to make it sound like he's actually well, just go watch the video. All right, I just, if you're interested, you can watch it. It's pretty funny, but I want to just keep pressing on with the weekly Restack. So let's now move to general news and current events. President Biden has signed an executive order urging the Treasury Department to ensure that stimulus checks reach millions of Americans who are eligible but who have not received them yet, including some who have not received the first stimulus check. If you did not receive a stimulus check by the time you file your 2020 tax returns and you're eligible, be sure to listen to last week's weekly Restack, in which I explain what you can do on your taxes to ensure that you receive the stimulus. But basically, you can claim a recovery rebate on your 2020 taxes if you didn't receive the stimulus. All right, so Biden also signed two executive orders that are intended to target a hunger crisis brought on by the pandemic. Hunger has not been seen as a widespread problem in the US in decades, but is now affecting over 29 million US citizens. The executive order asks the U.S. Department of Agriculture to provide food benefits for families and children who normally rely on subsidized school lunches, as well as increase in pandemic electronic benefits transfer program by 15%. Former Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen has been confirmed by the U.S. Senate as the new Treasury Secretary for the Biden administration. Yellen supports Biden's $1.9 trillion stimulus plan, and this will add to the nearly $28 trillion in national debt, $8 trillion of which was incurred under the Trump administration. Janet Yellen becomes the first ever female Treasury Secretary, a position that was held by Steve Mnuchin, who's a great friend of current Vice President Kamala Harris. The Biden administration seems to be targeting COVID and the pandemic relief and vaccine as the number one priority so far. The IMF has stated that the World Uncertainty Index, which is a quarterly measure of social, political, and economic anxiety, has dropped by over 60% since its all-time high, which was at the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. But the WUI remains relatively high. The IMF has stated that its outlook on the global economic recovery is cautiously optimistic and said that further stimulus may need to be injected on a case-by-case basis. Retired Army General Lloyd Austin has been confirmed by the Senate as the Secretary of Defense. Mr. Austin retired from the Army in 2016 and thus required a special waiver from Congress for approval as he did not meet the 7-year moratorium from active duty service as is specified in the National Security Act of 1947. Former President Donald Trump's first defense secretary, 4-star Marine Corps General James Mattis, required the same waiver. Between his active duty service and his appointment as defense secretary, Mr. Austin served as a board member of weapons manufacturer giant Raytheon. All of Trump's Pentagon chiefs and his latest defense secretary, Patrick Shanahan, have ties to weapons manufacturing companies, including Raytheon, General Dynamics, and Boeing. Thus, we see that the ongoing connection in Washington, D.C. between the U.S. government and the military-industrial complex is not going to change. Lloyd Austin is the first African-American defense secretary in U.S. history. Senate Republicans have requested that Senate Democrats wait to indict former President Donald J. Trump to allow Trump to prepare a legal defense, and Senate Democrats have agreed. House Democrats will send articles of impeachment to the Senate, which accuse the president of inciting an insurrection at the Capitol on January 6th. And the trial is set to begin on February 8th. If the impeachment trial goes against Trump, he will be barred from ever holding public office again, and he will not be given an annual travel budget of $1 million, which is afforded to all former U.S. presidents, and he will not be given a personal security detail for him nor his family, amongst other things. Former President Donald Trump has proposed the idea of starting a new conservative political party called the Patriot Party. This could affect how the members of the Republican Party support Trump or try to defend Trump. So we'll have to monitor this situation going forward because it could affect U.S. conservative politics a lot. China has passed a law on Friday that for the first time explicitly allows its Coast Guard to fire on foreign vessels, a move that could make the contested waters around China a lot more dangerous. China has maritime sovereignty disputes with Japan, Vietnam, the Philippines, Korea, and several other sovereign states in the East China Sea and the South China Sea. China's top legislative body, the National People's Congress Standing Committee, passed the Coast Guard law on Friday, according to state media reports. According to the wording in the bill published earlier, the Coast Guard is allowed to use, quote, all necessary means to stop or prevent threats from foreign vessels. The bill specifies the circumstances under which different kinds of weapons, including handheld weapons, shipborne weapons, or airborne weapons, can be used. Twitter has locked the Chinese embassy in the US's account for violating Twitter's policy against, quote, dehumanization after the Chinese embassy's account tweeted that Uyghur women, which Uyghurs are the Muslim minority of ethnic minority and religious minority living in northwestern China, after the Chinese embassy's account tweeted that Uyghur women had been emancipated by the government from being, quote, baby-making machines. So basically, the Chinese government is accusing the Uyghur culture of forcing their women to be baby-making machines, and that they're saying that they have freed Uyghur women from those circumstances. So as a result, Twitter locked the Chinese embassy's account, so we'll have to see how that unfolds. According to a report by Canadian news outlet Global News, several Canadian premiers, a premier is the Canadian equivalent of a U.S. state governor, several Canadian state premiers, including Alberta Premier Jason Kenney, Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe, and Ontario Premier Doug Ford, all want to, quote, go to war with the U.S. in retaliation over Joe Biden's recent cancellation of the Keystone XL pipeline permit. Well, here's what I have to say about that. Nationwide protests have exploded in the Russian Federation after the jailing of staunch Putin opposition leader Alexei Navalny. Mr. Navalny survived an attempt on his life via poisoning. Others who have been arrested include Mr. Navalny's aides, as well as supporters of Mr. Navalny and critics of Putin. Those who have been detained are accused of violating, quote, protest laws. Mr. Navalny has accused Mr. Putin of corruption and has nearly 60 million people who have followed his online documentary allegedly providing evidence of the accusations of corruption against Putin and his government. Democratic Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia is reportedly siding with Senate Republicans against a new round of stimulus checks for eligible Americans for $1,400. That's a recap of some of the biggest headlines around the world. Now let's turn to community news and notes. Pistol Pack and Pilot fans should check out his giveaway videos, which he has coming up, and learn about his plans for his 1,000 subscriber giveaway, which is going to be pretty huge. Pirate Stacker is also having a GAW going on, so go ahead and check that out. Inefficient Stacker, aka Mr. Fishy Fish, has announced some new big channel bars, and you should go check those out. They're really cool. I was looking at them while I was feeding my daughters breakfast, and my daughters were looking at them as well, and they were impressed. Mr. Fishy Fish has also asked me to tell you that XRP to the moon. Please note that this is in no way or shape or form financial advice, just the attitude and opinions of Mr. Fishy Fish. All right. Please go check out a new channel called Guam Stacker, who is a U.S. Marine Corps veteran and from Guam. And he's also a new stacker. He's very cool, very down to earth, and I'd like you all to go support him and let you know that Expat Stacker sent you over there. All right, so let's all pay attention to the trading volume in silver next week. And I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Leave your thoughts in the comments section, and I'll catch you all in next week's weekly Restack.
I'd rather be with you until that day will fly away. I just love that smiling face in the early sun. If I can't have you to myself, then life's no fun.